Hi, welcome to Debugging with Visual Studio. My name's Tim Titchmarsh, IronSpeed MVP, and I'm going to take you through some simplistic Visual Studio debugging with IronSpeed version 9. Okay, so I've loaded up a simple IronSpeed version 9 project, and I need to be able to debug some of the code behind using Visual Studio. IronSpeed is a brilliant product for editing the design and editing code, but debugging it leaves it to the Visual Studio world where you have the tools and the capability. If I look at this particular table here, edit customer, we can see there's some code behind, and I can edit this code within IronSpeed, but I can't debug it. So how would I go about doing that in Visual Studio? Well, the easiest way, let's say we want to sort of check what's going on when the page loads or when somebody clicks a button and maybe there's a problem we need to debug and find out what's happening. What I need to do is call up Visual Studio. Now I can either do that by hand or I can let IronSpeed do that for us. Very simply, we use the Visual Studio button at the top. That will then fire up the current version, which in this case is Visual Studio 10, load in the project, and it will take us to the exact page that I was in IronSpeed. So if I look at section 1, which is the interesting section, don't look at section 2 because you can't modify it, it gets overwritten by IronSpeed, but there's no need to go there because all your changes are in section 1. And okay, so you do need to know a little bit about .NET and how the sort of the page loads. This isn't for beginners who don't know the .NET world, C# or VB. I'm debugging in C# as it happens, but of course that could equally apply to Visual Basic. What I need to do is I just want to know when the page loads, and perhaps I need to do something. So this is everything in section 1. As I say, leave section 2 down here out of your you can go and look and see how it works because there's some great code samples that you can sort of borrow in your section 1. So looking through, we've got some pre-render events, we've got some save data events, and what we're looking for is the load. And here's the load data. So this is the part of the page that gets called when information is loaded in. So I'm going to put my cursor on the load data. Now I can either press F9 or I can go to the debug and say please put a breakpoint at that. And when I run this now, it will fire up and then take me straight to that line and then break. Okay, so what I need to do is go back into IronSpeed, and I need to make sure, of course, this is the very first time the project's been created. I need to build it. Okay, so IronSpeed will, if it hasn't already done so, go through and build the. Okay, there we go. It's all built. So now I can go back into my Visual Studio, press F5, or go to the debug option and start debugging. IronSpeed now is the Visual Studio now compiles the IronSpeed program, and the first thing, if you've not debugged your application before, is it would ask to modify the web config. This is perfectly normal, and you should say OK. Okay, and there is our debug breakpoint hit. Okay, at that point I can go and examine any variables I need to look at. I can change settings and do whatever, and everything's controlled through the debug menu. Okay, so you can start, stop, toggle breakpoints, disable them so that they're not actually called, and it's all done through the debug menu. This is all very well, so really all I've done is stop to the page load. It doesn't really help much. I want to do something a little bit more exciting than that. So let's just stop that now. And again, I can stop it at any time and the application will stop running. Okay, let's go back into IronSpeed for a second and sort of pull up a, let's have a look. Say add customer. Okay, this is a classic one where a customer, you want to add a customer to the system, and when you press the save button, maybe you want to go and do something. So let's see how would we go about doing that. We need to find the button. Save button. Okay, now if I go and look at the code for this, there's the button click event within IronSpeed. So I can call Visual Studio and put a breakpoint on the save button and then just go and check some of the field values, for example. So what I tend to do, the easiest way, is put a little comment, and I tend to put my initials, make sure they're unique, because what we're going to use the find facility in Visual Studio to find that line for me. Okay, so if I save that, flip back into Visual Studio, and then we're going to do Control Shift F which will go and find in files, and I'm just going to type in my initials, press return. Very quickly it's found that line, up comes the page, and it takes me straight to that line. So it's a very simple way of navigating around and finding that line without having to sort of deviate off and sort of browsing through to find that particular piece of code we're interested in. So again, put a breakpoint on that line. So go into debug, toggle breakpoint, and this time I want to go and examine a couple of variables to make sure that they've been pulled off the page. Okay, let me press F5, and again the code will be compiled. Bearing in mind, of course, IronSpeed has already built the code. We're just sort of compiling it and running it and debugging it. Okay, so I'm in my add page. I'm going to type in some information. Here we go. Let's just leave it like that for now and see if we can save. Okay, and what will happen when I press the save button is instantly the Visual Studio says, hey, hang about, I've hit a breakpoint, I'm going to stop. So what do we do now? I want to go and check out some of these fields that's been. Let's have a look at the fields. Sorry, customer, looking for the customer fields. There we go. So I want to go and look at name, email, and city, for example. Back into my debugging window. I can, in the immediate window off to the right, go and ask to look at the email field and look at the text in there. The question mark at the beginning is shorthand for print, so that's saying print email.text. Okay, and I can also hover over with the mouse and expand that information. Okay, and you can see there the text is Tim T at VB Pro. Okay, I can also go and do in the watch window, I can ask it to go and look at email in the watch, and you can see it's a text box, and I can view it that way. So here it's very easy to see what's going on, see the information, and make decisions as to whether you're on the right track. Now, of course, you need to know other parts and how all the page fits together, how the record control works, so that you can sort of debug it effectively. But I just wanted to give you a little heads up on how the debugging works in Visual Studio, how to call it from IronSpeed, and my next session we're going to spend a little bit more time using Visual Studio to effectively see the different parts of the page load, save, and change, and then work out how we might debug and change information behind the scenes. Of course, with IronSpeed version 9, there's a lot of information within the product that you only really need to go into the Visual Studio part if you need to customize some of the behind the scenes code. Normally most things can be done through formulas or the designer itself. So anyway, very simple run through there. I hope you enjoyed it, and join me for part 2 where we go into some more advanced Visual Studio debugging. Thanks for watching.